Howdy y'all, Fuzzy Biker here outside of the Fuzzy Biker Garage. Boy, have I got a treat for y'all today. Look at this hot rod. This is my 1976 Sportster. A good friend of mine, the Barry, he bought this brand new, I think it was brand new, back in the day, and we grew up kind of together, and I used to race him on my Japanese bikes, and we had a good old time. He passed away about 8 years ago, and I ended up getting this from his widow. And we rebuilt it and got it running, and just having a good old time with it ever since. And I try to get it out a couple times a year. I don't ride it a lot, but we redid the whole top end, and whole electrical system, all that neat stuff. So what is it? It's called a Sportster. It's got the electric start. It's the XLH model. It's 1,000 cc's, or I think it's 998 cc's. Ironhead. This is all iron, all the way up to the heads. Now these little covers are aluminum, but anyway. It's this is the starter right here. It's a dry sump engine. Here's the old oil tank. I just checked that before we got going. Chain drive, of course. 4-speed transmission. This one has a disc brake on it, and it's actually a very good disc brake for 1976. Yeah, we're still leaking gas. This is a trait of old motorcycles. Back in the day, that was very common. You put gas in it, and then the heat from the sun and the engine. And anyway, look at that big old shifter on there, though. Isn't that something? That's the shifter. Look at that. It's a mile long. This was kind of an intermittent year where they knew they had to change the shifting system to the far side, and they kind of scraped it together the year before, 75 and 76. Then in 77 they did something different to make it work better. But quite a motorcycle. Wheelbase is about 55 inches long. I think that's 1,400 millimeters, I believe. I don't know the wheel sizes. Maybe I can spot that on there. 19 on the front, 90-90 19 on the front. And the rear is a 120-90 18. I think it's a Metzler on the back, and I've got a Dunlop on the front. It says Harley Davidson on it, so it must run good. This has got the aluminum rims on spokes. The aluminum rims were lighter. It's less rotating mass. And that's supposed to mean a little bit more performance. A little bit more. The motor was supposed to put out about 58 to 63 horsepower, 58 to 60 some horsepower, and about 50 foot-pounds of torque. I think that's about 75 newton meters. I think that's about right. But quite a fun machine. Seat height was quite low, but I don't know the number anymore. I can't remember it. Fuel tank is 2.2 gallons. So when you put fuel in this hot rod, you better know where your next gas stop is. The bike gets about 40 miles a gallon, so you go about 70 miles before you need to refill. And the reserve, there is a reserve. The reserve is about 8 miles. I used it one time, and that's what I got out of it, was 8 miles. I ran short. Anyway, it's a fun bike. This is a horn right here. Primary drive right there. There's a big chain in there. The clutch basket is right there. Check out all this neat stuff here. Coil is right up here. We put electronic ignition in a year or so ago. Maybe it was this year even. This is kind of an oil cooler of some sort. It used to be part of a power steering pump on a car, and that's what they did, chrome and sell them to Harley guys. I've got drag pipes on it. Barry put those on, so I left them on when I redid the bike. Also, the original exhaust is very hard to find. Jumping up here, nice Harley mirrors. The bike had one mirror, I think it was this one, and I ended up finding that one at a swap meet. So up here we've got the tachometer on this side. Over here we've got the speedometer. I traded these old bikes, and a lot of old bikes from the era, they bounced, the gauges would bounce. The tachometer is a cable drive thing, and the cable drive is right there. So it's a mechanical tach right there, all the way up. The speedo is also mechanical. That's right there. That's speedo drive to the back. Little eyebrow right there. It's really an interesting bike. It's a handful to ride. I wouldn't let anybody really ride this because it takes almost a special set of, like a magic set of skills to ride. We'll go out and take it for a ride, and I'll tell you all about it. So original paint, original seat, pretty much everything's original except for the pipes, the carburetor. I think that's it. Oh, the battery case. Had to get a different battery case. This thing. And then we had, the new regulator. This was an intermittent year where they had the old style points regulator or this regulator, was both available. You just look at the draw which one you got. And this bike had this kind of regulator on it, so I went ahead and kept it on there. Probably better off for it. There's a clutch right there, clutch cable. Up here you've got the high-lows, the horn on that side, left turn signal. Over here it's the right turn signal, the start button, and the kill switch. And then of course the big buckhorn bars for the, look at that thing, isn't that a hot rod? Just love it, just love it. Big drum brake on the rear. Okay, my friends, I'm gonna gear up, we're gonna go for a ride. Clutch is in, kickstand is up. Oh yeah. Sounds good, sounds good. These things are a hoot, an absolute hoot to ride. I'm not sure what gear we're in. Hey, what fun it is, what fun it is. These things are about as, they handle like a drunken pig. They are a grin, an absolute grin to ride. They handle like a drunken pig when they're new. When they're this old, what is this, 76, so this would be 48 years old. They really handle like a good thing, don't they? I did check my tire pressure and my chain and all my oil and all that neat stuff, so everything's hunky-dory that way. I will say this about it, it has very good brakes. For the era it has very good brakes. By modern standards, well, that's a whole nother story, but they're very predictable. The big old disc on the front is great, I love it. Works like a champ. Hey, here's some more Harley riders. I saw these guys earlier. Hey, I can't use my blinkers because they don't work. They're there, but they don't work. Motor has loads of torque. It really doesn't seem to care what gear it's in. I mean, I still shift, of course. What a grin. I love this thing. The Mikuni carburetor does not have a accelerator pump in it. So, you know, it doesn't have that instant jump. And I'm okay with that because it runs and starts excellent with that carburetor. It's a very good carburetor for it. It's got the round slide. Beautiful machine. How does it handle? It handles pretty good around town. Very low center of gravity to push it out of the shop or something. It's pretty easy going. It's incredibly low center of gravity. It's the lowest center of gravity bike I own. It's kind of like a skateboard almost. The weight is so far down. Handles great around town. You know, it does fine. It's a bit of a trick to drive in that the suspension is mucky and mushy, but that's all right. The brakes are a little bit of a trick also because they're, you know, 48-year-old technology, basically. They're good for the era, I would say, but something else. I really do enjoy riding this thing. It is a lot of fun to ride. It's a little bit of a trick, you know, there's a skill to it, but it's an absolute grin to ride. Hey, there's a Harley symbol right there, by golly. And there's a Harley right there. I love the sound. We thought about going back to stock exhaust, and two things stop that. One is I don't think the stock exhaust looks or sounds as good as this does. Barry had put this exhaust on when he had the bike. And two is to find a stock exhaust is almost impossible. Now, having said that, I've found two sets in the last, I think I've had this bike 4 or 5 years now. Oh, what are we doing here? Now, Barry used to live in this town, so I'm sure this bike has made the rounds of this park many times over the years. The old 4-speed works wonders. Ah, they're doing some yard work up there. I think we'll leave those guys alone. We don't want to mess with that. How does it handle, you know, 2-lane blacktop? Oh, it's a lot of fun on 2-lane blacktop. It's a rough ride. You know, if the roads are really smooth and straight, it's an easy thing. But anything bumpy or, you know, curvy, and curves, it does the curves just fine. It just, you have to know how to ride it. There's a kind of a trick to it, you know, riding an old sloppy bike. You know, the bikes from the days gone by had, you know, the tubes are, I think they're 39 millimeter, which is pretty thin. And the suspensions, the sprung, they were always, and the suspensions were always sprung soft back then. So, you know, it's kind of a mushy thing. And then now it's, like I said, 48, I think it's 48 years old. So add all that together and what do you get? An interesting ride for sure. And then there's the brakes, and like I said, the brakes are pretty darn good for the era, but they're this thing is a grin, an absolute grin. What about on the highway? How does it do on the highway? We're going to spin around here and head back. Well, I've had it on the interstate before, and it actually did pretty darn good. It actually liked the interstate. It loves to run fast. It does shake, rattle, and roll a little bit, but it loves to do it. It's just not a very comfortable thing for the rider. The bike seems to enjoy the higher RPMs and the higher speeds for sure. They're doing work up here, so we'll just kind of scoot our way through here. Seating position is kind of cramped. The seat is pretty down low. I can, it's low to the ground because it is a Harley and they like that. The banana seat itself is kind of comfortable, I'll say that. It's not terribly comfortable. It's not thick by any means. Your knees are up above your knees are above your hips, so your hips are below your knees. Looks like my heels are actually behind my knees, so it's a little tight back there, I guess. How about that? You do feel kind of cramped. Your arms are in an excellent spot, I'll give them that. Feels good on the arms. The bars kind of reach up to you, almost. Pretty good, these buckhorn bars. I like that. I'm not reaching down to the bars like a lot of modern bikes, a lot of Sportsters, the modern ones. Nothing wrong with the modern ones, I like them too. How about the shifting? That's a beautiful old Indian there. How about the shifting? Well, that's kind of a whole other story. The clutch on these things, these old bikes. I talked to one guy, he said he adjusted his clutch 1,000 times, and I actually believe him. And what I learned was, you can either adjust it good for the top and have a loose bottom, or you can adjust it good for the bottom and have a loose top. You adjust it so it goes into gear good at the bottom end, and when you get going high speeds or whatever, the clutch gets hot, it might start to slip in the top gears, or you can adjust it the other way around, where it's a little hard to get in gear at the top or at the bottom, but it'll do its job at the but it'll hold its own at the top. And so what I did was we put a new clutch in it because the old one was 40 years old. It's 40 some years old. And I would let it ride. I'd adjust it, and then I'd ride it for a whole mess of miles. And then I'd do a very minute amount of adjustment. And we did that several times. And I finally just got to the point where I've got it so it does pretty good on both ends. Not great, but pretty good, When you get this bike out on like a 200 or 300 mile ride, it does fine, and then you'll go through some little town and where the engine builds up some heat and the clutch will slip a little bit. Get back on the road and it straightens itself right back out. It's an excellent thing. It's an interesting thing. How's that? It's an interesting bike to ride for sure. It's a lot of fun. All right, my friends. Well, I think I am going to shut this hot rod camera off, and I'm going to take this thing out for a spin and kind of enjoy the rest of the day. 4th of July is tomorrow. Independence Day here in America. Very proud of that. Y'all get out there and ride. Life is good. Get out there and ride. Wahoo! Yippee-yi-yay! Yippee-yi-yo! Down the road we go. Beautiful, beautiful machine. Turn the radio on. 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 Turn the radio on.